All right, my preps. So this is Hakim, your Survive University Dean, and I'm back with part 2 of this bank closing your accounts shenanigans. Just diving a little bit deeper. Today I went to the bank, a new bank. The bank that created all these challenges for me was Bank of America. I went to Truist because I needed a bank that was close to my businesses. So Truist has one that's close to both locations. And even though I'm like pretty done with this big bank idea, it's just really blowing my mind. And so I walk in there and I have my cashier's check because, as you know, the recap from the last one was that I end up calling my bank about this credit card that I have, that they sent me a letter saying that the credit card was being shut down. I'd never used the credit card. I've had it for several years. I have a pretty big credit line on it. Because I started opening this new business, I was like, okay, I'm gonna use this to cover some of these expenses while I'm growing the business and so on and so forth. And the next thing I know, I get this letter and it's like, you're shut down. So I'm blown away. I'm like, okay, so you give me this card, I start using it, and then you shut me down. So then I called up the bank to see if I can negotiate with them and say, hey, like, I've been a client of yours for almost 20 years. I think that this is kind of shady. And when I did, the lady agreed with me, and she was like, I'm going to patch you through to a manager. The manager gets on the line, and he's like, well, we made this as a business decision. I'm like, can you tell me more? Like, what did I do wrong? Like, is something going on here? Nope, it's just a business decision. I said, well, okay, then you guys obviously don't want my business. He then proceeds to follow up with, don't worry about it. Your check is in the mail. You got a check coming. So I'm like, why do I have a check coming? Like, what does that mean? And he's like, all your accounts at Bank of America will be closed at some point today. So I'm like, what? It doesn't make any sense. So we go back and forth. I keep asking him why. What is he talking about? He's like, it's a business decision. We made it as a business decision. I'm like, look, dude, if there's something wrong, I need to know. Like, what happened? I'm not doing anything weird or shady or out of the ordinary. And if I am for some reason, tell me what's going on so I can correct it. What's happening. But there wasn't. There's no reason. There's nothing going on. And I think the way they get away with this is that it's embarrassing. It makes people feel self-conscious. Like, if I tell this to somebody, they're going to immediately say, well, the banks would never do that. Because then they have to accept that it may happen to them, or it could be possible to happen to them. And I spent last night going over videos online, and sure enough, it's happened to quite a bit of people. And it's happening, and it's been happening. But nobody's putting it on blast. And several of the really big people, celebrities that have had this happen to them, they will go to news stations, and the news stations will go to the banks. And then all of a sudden, the banks want to talk. The banks will call up these clients and say, hey, we think that you deserve a second chance, so we're going to give you another opportunity, or we're going to look into the matter further. But that's a far cry from what they were giving these people and me, which is, it's just a business decision. Okay, well, what the hell does that mean? So now, do I have to be a celebrity to be able to get a little bit more knowledge on what's going on here? Or are they just taking advantage of the small guy, thinking, okay, these guys don't have the resources or the power to really fight this, so we get to do what we want? And that seems to be the going, theme in this particular situation. So now let me get to what's happened today. So I take this cashier's check for several thousands of dollars for me to run my business. I go to Truist, I sit down, I start opening an account with this person, their manager. And as we're going through it, I'm like, so can I get temporary cards for my accounts because these are business accounts? Oh yeah, my personal account got closed too, right? So I'm like, I got two, so I opened up 2 personal accounts and 2 business accounts at this bank. And I'm like, can I get some temporary cards, especially for the business accounts, because I have bills that are going to be coming. I have things that I need to purchase that I normally purchase on cards. And the guy says, oh, we don't do temporary cards on new accounts. Bro, are you kidding me right now? You don't do temporary cards on new accounts? So he's like, yeah, we don't do that. We used to, we don't do it anymore. I'm like, well, this is unacceptable. I got a business, I got bills that need to get paid, things that are going to be happening in the next few days. I need to get this stuff squared away. So can I talk to a manager? So he brings his manager, or he goes and talks to his manager. His manager says, okay, we can issue him 1 temporary card on 1 account. So I'm like, that's better than nothing. Look, I just got to get this thing done. And so we figured that out. So then I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I got these 2 checks, cashier's checks from the Bank of America, right? And I'm like, hey, here's my checks. Can we go ahead and deposit those? Oh yeah, no problem, sir. Just know that it's gonna be on checks this size, there's gonna be like a 7 to 10 business day hold, or 7 to 14 business day hold. What? I'm like, that doesn't, I don't understand that. Look, this has to go like now, because I have bills that are coming out of this account tomorrow and the day after that, and I need to get this thing squared away. Oh, well, it's just our policy. We have to make sure this is verified and so on. I'm like, it's a cashier's check from Bank of America. What do you mean you got to wait for it to be verified? What does that mean? Oh, we need to verify it and make sure that it's not, fraud or something of this nature. I'm like, bro, this is blowing my mind. When I purchased a house, and I went down to the courthouse to purchase this house because it was on auction. This was a long time ago. I went in there and they said, we won't take a personal check and we won't take a card. You have to actually bring us a cashier's check. Why? Because they verify that you have the money in your account, and it's verified by the bank because it's written on a bank check with their letterhead, with their little code and everything embedded in the check. So I'm like, whoa. So now fast forward a few years, I'm going to the bank, another bank, with a bank cashier's check saying, hey, I closed this account down, I need to open this account, and they're telling me they need to verify it. It's just blowing my mind. I'm like, that's what a whole cashier's check is for. Like, it's verified by the bank that you have that money. That's what they're telling you with that check, and they put it and they stamp it and they got everything going on. So what are you talking about? So I'm like, can we talk to the manager again? So the manager says, well, we can verify it by calling them, but we need to call. So we spend the next hour and a half, we're calling Bank of America. No, that branch, nobody's picking up. Calling. So I'm like, look, what I got to go to work soon. What's going on here? And he's like, well, there's nothing we can do unless we verify with this bank that this check was written by them. So I'm like, look, this doesn't make any sense, but we got to have a resolution. So the manager says, well, okay, we'll deposit it, and then tomorrow we'll put, somebody on it and call and see if we can get through. And if we can get through, then we'll lift the hold on it, and then we can move forward with that. So I'm like, well, if that's my only recourse, that'll have to be, but that's better than 7 to 14 business days. So just as we're thinking about that or talking that over, I realized the person who helped me at Bank of America actually is the son of a friend of mine. And I'm like, wait a minute, I should be able to call him. I'll try to call him directly and see. But I didn't have his number. So I had to call his father, who's the friend. And I was like, hey, can I get your son's number? I got a real big issue, an emergency here. I know this isn't professional, but I need this thing. I need to call this guy and have him verify that this check was indeed written by Bank of America. Again, even though it has all their information right on the check. So I'm like, I need to get this thing verified. So he gives me his son's number. I'm calling. The son's not picking up. So I figure he's at work with a client or maybe off doing something. So I finally get up, totally exhausted, overwhelmed. I start walking out and he calls me back. So I run back in this guy's office. I'm like, hey, I got the kid on the phone now from Bank of America. And I put him on speaker, and he was like, hey, if you call me now or call here now, the branch, I'll have my boss pick up the phone and she can verify that check is indeed from here. So we called immediately, and thank God that they picked up. The lady verified it. He was going to be in my account tomorrow, they said, basically. Wow. You talk about crazy. I essentially was unbanked, and I still don't have a card. I have a temporary card. So I'm unbanked, and now I have a bank, but I have to wait for the payment to be lifted, or for the hold to be lifted, until tomorrow, and then I'll be able to start moving funds around and doing what I need to do. But then that now starts the next portion of this challenge, which is, this was my business account. So I have auto pay for 2 businesses for all these different accounts. Auto pay for the power, the water, the electric is power. Auto pay for mortgages and rent payments. Auto pay for our payroll coming out. Auto pay for like everything you can imagine. So I have to now go through and change auto pay on all of those bills, and that's going to be a beast, an absolute beast. I'm not looking forward to that. And that process starts later today, and it starts tomorrow, and it's just blowing my mind that there are all these layers. And again, like I said on my last video, this was the case for crypto, where they had DeFi, where you were able to get a stable coin, put money in, and then transfer and use that money in different places, because banks are just doing what they want to do now. Doing what they want to do. They have no legislation that protects us per se, and if you don't believe that, you can look at things like bank ends, right? And then also banks that shut down and then they just take people's money. There's videos about this stuff, right? And you'd think like there's no way, but the average person, let's say there is no way, let's say it is illegal. The average person can't float several $1,000s on their own, unbanked, until they get it squared away and figured out. So that means all your payments, all of a sudden, all the money that you had, your savings account, all that stuff is just no longer available to you. But yet your bills are still coming out, and you're gonna have to try to explain to your people or your bill people that, oh yeah, my account got closed and that's why I can't pay you today. They don't want to hear that. So now you have payments and stuff that are coming out that you have no way to pay those things. You couldn't even pay them cash if you wanted to. You can't write them a check. You can't do anything. Your money is just shut off completely. And then let's say you file legal action, or you take them to the bank, or you say this isn't fair. I want to fight this. Well, how are you going to fight that? How are you going to pay for a lawyer? You don't have access to any of your money. How are you going to keep yourself afloat? Well, now you got to borrow money. But if you're like most people, you didn't have a lot of money, and then you're living from paycheck to paycheck, and 9 times out of 10 the people around you are living from paycheck to paycheck, because that's like 40 or 50% of Americans don't have enough money in the bank to cover a $500 emergency. So now you got $4,000 worth of bills that are due this month, but your bank has shut everything down, and it's going to take you 20 days to get through it. And in the process, you don't have any of your money. In some cases, even longer maybe. And then you're looking at the people around you and they don't have any money, so they can't help you out. So now you're like in this bind. So it's just over the top. So that's my part 2 of this whole thing. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to spend the day trying to prepare all this stuff with getting accounts switched over, and then I'll tell you what's going on next. By the time we get to part 4, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be figuring out the best strategy for this not to happen, or if it happened, not for it not to happen, because I don't think you could stop it, but if it happens to you, or to keep it from happening to you, what you can do to prevent or get around it, so that if it does happen, that you have fail-safes, basically. You're able to still access some of your money and go from there. Because I do have crypto. I do have another savings account at another bank. But I don't have enough to cover all my personal bills and all of my business bills. All of that stuff, I had savings for the business, but they were inside the same bank. So now I had that bank shut down my savings account for the business and my business operating account, and then my personal accounts that were at that. And so luckily I had the savings account at another bank outside of Bank of America, and I was able to use those funds for me, or I'm able to use those funds for me, but what would happen? What would happen if I didn't have that? And this thing dragged on. I got very lucky, and here's how I got lucky. If I had called a half an hour later to figure out what was going on with my card, it would have been too late for me to go to the bank, sit there, get all my cashier's checks before they were closing. And then I would have just woken up the next day and everything would have been shut down. If I didn't know a person at the bank who happens to be the son of a friend of mine, I'm not even close with this kid, and that I was able to call the father, and the father picked up, and then I was able to then call the son, and then the son wasn't picking up but calls back just before I leave the bank, then I would be leaving there with no real resolution other than we'll try to call Bank of America tomorrow and see if we can get through. So I got really lucky. And according to this kid at Bank of America, this happens all the time. And most of the time people just show up and they try to use their account and their account is closed. And then they go to the bank to figure out what's going on. And then they're told, oh yeah, it's a business decision. There's nothing we can do. You got a check that'll be coming in the mail soon. So then they have to scramble to figure out what's going on. And that is, if you look at videos, other videos online, that is what's happening. And it's happening to a lot of people, more than what you would ever guess. Because again, I think people just aren't talking about it because they know that the first thing that's going to come to mind to people's mind, oh, well, that didn't happen to me, and you must have did something wrong, or hey, now I'm questioning your personal character. Like, is this guy really above board? Because they would never do that to just somebody randomly. So now your character's being called into question, and so most people don't even say anything because they're afraid that people are not going to believe them. And then you got this big organization, against this small individual. And this is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So follow me on to this next video. I'm going to be talking about what happens as I start the process of changing everything over. And then the video after that, I'm already thinking about it. It's going to be on how to actually protect yourself from something like this, because that's going to be forefront on my mind for the future. All right, I'm Hakim, your Survive University Dean, and I'm out.